Strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living the dream. Halloween with my friends. We're living a dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living a dream. Clock strikes 8. It's a Halloween with my friends. We're living a dream.
There was too much water and undercurrent.
Recovery for many rural farmers could take months or even years.
Our home got badly damaged, and all the crops that I planted got washed away. It's a total loss.
Climate experts warn that changing rainfall patterns in the Himalayan region could lead to even more devastating natural disasters in Bangladesh.
Israel attacks the ancient city of Baalbek. Lebanon's caretaker prime minister says he's hopeful of a ceasefire in the coming days. I'm Rob Matheson and this is Al Jazeera live from Doha. Also coming up, an Israeli airstrike at Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza destroys a warehouse of medical supplies that was only received days ago. A UN inquiry says Israel is carrying out a concerted policy to destroy Gaza's entire healthcare system. And one of the most powerful super typhoons ever to hit Taiwan makes landfall, causing devastation across the island. We're going to begin in Lebanon, where Prime Minister Najib Mikati says he hopes a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel will be announced in the coming days. The Israeli military is continuing to carry out heavy airstrikes on the ancient city of Baalbek. 8 women are among 19 people killed in the attacks on eastern Lebanon. Dosa Shabani reports from Beirut.
This is Doris, about 3 kilometers southwest of the city of Baalbek in eastern Lebanon. Israeli airstrikes hit the town on Wednesday following forced evacuation threats from the Israeli military, telling the nearly 85,000 residents of the historic city of Baalbek to leave or face bombing. A UNESCO heritage site, the city of Baalbek is home to the Roman-era temple of Venus, Jupiter, and Bacchus, dating back nearly 2,000 years. Known as the City of the Sun because of its unique temples, this once well-known tourist attraction is about 70 kilometers northeast of the capital, Beirut. This is not the first time Israel has attacked this area. On Monday, one of the biggest attacks here killed at least 60 people, most of them civilians. As Baalbek came under attack, the newly appointed Secretary General of the armed group Hezbollah released his inaugural pre-recorded speech, vowing the group will continue to fight.
We
are continuing to confront the aggression, and if Israel wants to stop it, we will accept the conditions that we see as appropriate. And the basis of any negotiations is a ceasefire first.
The latest area of Lebanon to come under Israeli attacks is one of the oldest and most historic in the country. Baalbek is known to be a stronghold of Hezbollah, but it is the civilian population that continues to pay the price.
Israel is trying to weaken Hezbollah's support base in the current phase, and that's why it is targeting different areas in Lebanon. Israel wants to say it can strike anywhere. It's also trying to put an end to Hezbollah's cross-border attacks, as well as create mass displacement of the group's supporters to try to weaken the organization.
The UN says Lebanon risks falling off what it called a humanitarian cliff, with nearly 1.5 million Lebanese already forced from their homes inside the country, including 500,000 children, and nearly 3,000 people killed and over 10,000 injured. The strikes on Baalbek are being described as cultural genocide and an attack on history by many Lebanese people. As a diplomatic solution appears to be a distant reality, both Israel and Hezbollah continue to stand their ground and continue the pattern of escalation despite the costs. Dorsa Jabari, Al Jazeera, Beirut.
Going to get more from Zina Khadr, who's joining us live now from Riyadh in eastern Lebanon. More Israeli attacks in eastern Lebanon, as well as the attacks on Baalbek.
Yes, in the past hour, there's been yet another Israeli strike in the town of Budai. That's in the Baalbek district. It came without prior warning. Most of the thousands of strikes, really, that Israel carried out in recent weeks came without prior warning. But yesterday, the Israeli military issued evacuation orders for much of Baalbek city and surrounding areas before carrying out a series of airstrikes, creating more displacement. So as you can see, Israel is intensifying and expanding its bombardment. Yesterday, tens of thousands of people were on the move. Already Lebanon grappling with a massive displacement crisis. There's nowhere for these people to go. So this intensification of the conflict, this escalation, according to a Hezbollah MP, is a strategy really of killing and destroying people's homes as well as destroying Hezbollah. But Hezbollah really remaining defiant. Its newly appointed leader saying that the group is ready to fight really for weeks and months if there is a need. And Hezbollah believes it has leverage because its troops are still fighting and confronting Israeli troops along the border as they try to advance into southern Lebanon. So each side trying to improve, if you like, their bargaining position, and they are both negotiating under fire.
Zaina, stay with me because I want to talk about this comment from the Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati. He says he's hopeful for chances of a ceasefire despite negative reports.
Hopefully in the coming hours or days we'll see a ceasefire. In my conversation with Amos Hochstein, he was very hopeful, even though there were reports in the media suggesting otherwise. He was initially supposed to return to Tel Aviv on Sunday, but some obstacles delayed negotiations. But things have since gone smoothly. We hope this translates into an actual ceasefire and that we might see him in Beirut by the end of the week. Hezbollah was late in separating the Lebanese front line from the Gaza front, but today they managed to separate it, though the separation took some time.
OK, let's go back to Zina Khadr and react. So the Lebanese Prime Minister, they're saying that hopefully in the coming days there might be a ceasefire. Well, hope is one thing and optimism as well, of course. At the same time, is there any evidence to suggest that there could actually be a ceasefire within that time frame?
What he is saying is that he's doing everything that he can and that we should remain optimistic. Now, some will describe this as optimistic language, but the bottom line is there is a major hurdle that needs to be overcome, a major sticking point between the warring sides, and that is the enforcement mechanism of UN Resolution 1701. Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri, who is mediating on behalf of Hezbollah, has made it clear that it will be the Lebanese army that will enforce that resolution. Israeli officials have been talking about the possibility of a U.S. role in enforcing 1701, as well as the right or freedom, if you like, to operate, to act against threats and violations as it sees fit. So in many ways, that is a violation of Lebanon's sovereignty, and it's unlikely to be accepted by the Lebanese side. UN Resolution 1701 was adopted after the 2006 war. When the U.S. envoy Hochstein was here last week, he said it has not been fully implemented and commitments made by the Lebanese government are just not enough. So what he's made clear is that there needs to be an enforcement mechanism. And that really is the sticking point. It is basically asking Hezbollah to surrender, to give control of the country's borders, airports, entry points to the American side or to the Israeli side, which is something Hezbollah is not ready to do, at least for now.
Zaina, thank you. Zina Khadr talking to us from Riyadh in eastern Lebanon. Israeli fighter jets have targeted the third floor of the Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza. The hospital is located in Beit Lahia. It's been struggling to provide medical assistance to an increasing number of casualties from Israel's assault on the north of the Strip. The latest strikes destroyed a warehouse of medical supplies which had been delivered by the World Health Organization just 5 days ago. Hani Mahmoud is joining us live from Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. Once again, Israeli strikes hitting a significant medical center in the north of Gaza.
Rob, not only the Israeli military has pushed Kamal Adwan Hospital out of service, the past few days have been quite very difficult, but today's attack, we managed to talk to the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, confirmed that the Israeli military targeted the third floor of the facility of the main building of the hospital, destroying and damaging major parts of the boxes of medical supplies that were delivered by the WHO in the past few days, and when it was allowed to deliver these medical supplies to the hospital. Let's just also not forget that the WHO had difficult times reaching to the Kamal Adwan Hospital. It was impeded for more than 5 hours until it was allowed to deliver these medical supplies. But as of this morning, we can confirm that this warehouse on the third floor of the hospital has been targeted and destroyed. A major part of these medical supply necessarily needed for the Israeli military targeted a desalination water station at the vicinity of medical of Kamal Adwan Hospital, just prevent from having proper access to water supply. Let's not forget, for 26 days today, the entire northern part, mainly the area of Jabali refugee camp, have no proper access to food, water, medicine, and other survival life-saving
region. The number of dead now standing at 95. The Spanish government indicating yesterday that they thought that total was likely to go up. And this nation, well, a few days ago, really didn't have any idea that it was coming. And the area has today woken up to find lives and property in ruins. In Spain's flood zone, the torrents of water rushed through the streets. But it's from the air that you can see the full picture of devastation. A city now submerged. This the aftermath of flash floods that swept across southeast Spain. In Valencia, the water engulfs everything tars. Those who sheltered inside got no more protection. You can hear the screams of residents at this care home as floodwater, a metre high, gushes through. This is the worst flooding in Spain in almost 30 years. The force of the water enough to wipe out a bridge. In this town, half an hour from Valencia, the damage simply immense.
The whole bar is destroyed. The freezers, the chairs, the tables, everything. I've just opened up now and there's nothing that can be salvaged.
Stunned locals take in the destruction. Not one single street left untouched here. As the number of dead rises, so does the number of people deployed to help the survivors. More than 1,000 soldiers operating with emergency services in scenes like these. Where the water has receded, the scale of destruction all too clear.
We just had time to grab our phones, not even our ID cards or anything. Everything on the ground floor is destroyed. I've never seen anything like it.
These people had no choice but to abandon their ruined homes. And what they've left behind, torn apart with barely a warning. And it is
he has clarified now could have similar reverberations to that previous. I mean, he was certainly active in politics then and was aware of the impact that had.
I'm not going to go back and litigate 2016. I'm just not going to do that from here. He was not speaking about Trump supporters. He was not, as a whole, he was not speaking about people who support a different candidate. That is not what he was doing. And he clarified that statement last night. That was not his intent. He wanted to be very clear about that, hence, again, why he said he was speaking about comments that were made by the comedian. And let's not forget, we can't forget, what we heard was the demonization of Latinos. That's what we heard of a community. By the way, you know, and I know you all know this, Puerto Ricans are Americans. He wanted to make sure that, you know, we speak out against hateful rhetoric. It's important to do that. Was he talking about Trump supporters? Absolutely not. As a whole, absolutely not. Okay, sure.
So the president of, who's just here visiting President Biden said of Cyprus said that he thought that there could be some movement on a Lebanon ceasefire within 1 to 2 weeks. He said that he had discussed this matter with President Biden. I wonder if you can give us a sort of an indication of whether you think that is also true, that there could be a ceasefire in Lebanon within 1 to 2 weeks. And if you could just comment on Israel's ban of UNRWA and whether you think that's helpful for the process.
So look, obviously we're going to remain committed to reaching a diplomatic resolution here to end the conflict along the blue line, which will allow Israelis and also Lebanese civilians on both sides to return to their homes. And this is something that we've been pretty consistent about, and we're going to continue to have certainly that commitment to have diplomatic resolution to end what we're seeing along the blue line. Look, and we're also been very consistent to not having negotiating certainly in public. That is not something that we're going to do from here. We're going to certainly be optimistic, and we are committed to that. Just not going to go into any kind of where we are with those conversations, what's happening. We're not going to certainly negotiate out from here. It relates to, I'm assuming you're speaking about the Knesset vote on UNRWA. So look, certainly we are deeply troubled by that. By this legislation that could shut down UNRWA operations in the West Bank, Gaza, and also East Jerusalem. So we urge the government of Israel, we're having this conversation with the government of Israel to pause implementing this legislation. We urge the government of Israel certainly to ensure UNRWA can effectively carry out its mission and facilitate humanitarian assistance. But we also support steps to strengthen UNRWA as well, in part so that UNRWA's impartiality and neutrality, including to respond to allegations, as you have all covered, to ties to terrorism. But we are certainly deeply troubled by that, and we're continuing to have conversations with the Israeli government.
Thank you, Karine. First on the comments last night, was the president aware in the moment, as soon as he had made those comments, that they could potentially be misconstrued and be problematic, or was it only after conversations with aides?
I'm not going to get into a process. I think what the president put out a statement and wanted to make sure that he clarified himself, clarified what he meant here. And this is something that he wanted to do, and that's what you saw from this president last night. And I think that's important to note. I would also say, and I said this already, and I'll say it again, from day one, the president has always said that he will be president for all Americans. It doesn't matter if you voted for him or not, and that continues to be the case. He was making a particular point, a specific point about a comedian and the hateful rhetoric that was heard by all of us on Sunday, but I'm not going to get into the back and forth. I think what's important to note is that the president himself wanted to clarify this.
And we'll continue to follow the top stories here in the United States and also around the world. I'm Andy Mack. We're back after this.
Second, this is a kind of big problem for Spain, and at the moment it is receiving offers of help from the European Union, from neighbours, Portugal, Italy, and others. But of course, mostly this is a calamity on the ground. People who live here who are walking around looking stunned, shocked, bewildered and helpless. And as an indication of just how freakish this is, just down the road there, beyond all these cars that are piled on top of each other. There is a side street, and in the middle of it is a boat. That isn't supposed to be there. This sort of event isn't supposed to happen. And this town and this country is reeling from these floods.
Stephen, I thank you. Isn't the first parts of Europe have been rocked by storms, Amelia Morning?
No, this is probably the worst flooding that Spain has seen, though, since 1996, where 87 people died after there was torrential rainfall at a campsite in the Pyrenees. Fortunately, obviously there have been a huge number of deaths, but it hasn't been as bad as the last huge set of floods that we had in July 2021, when 243 people lost their lives in Germany, Belgium, Romania, Italy and Austria. We've got some pictures there. You can just see the devastation to that road in particular. And this is flooding, but obviously storms and flooding are closely intertwined. In December 1999, we had Storm Lothar. That was probably the worst storm that has hit Europe in recent times. They had winds of over 120 miles an hour hitting France, Switzerland and southwest Germany. Very sadly, over 110 people lost their lives, and the damage to infrastructure was over 10.6 billion euros. But as Adam was alluding to in his piece there, I think we need to look forward and look at why this is happening. Climate scientists are saying it is to do with climate change, that we are seeing these once-in-a-decade events happening more often, and they are greater in severity.
OK, for now, thank you. Thanks a lot. Rest of today's top stories. Morning.
Good morning. Yes, Donald Trump is a trash driver and Joe Biden eating a chicken. All to come.
Stand by.
Stand by, because it's the US, and it's a day of costumes and gimmicks on the campaign trail. That's as Halloween brought out the stranger side of American politics. Donald Trump, like I say, seizing on comments from President Biden where he called Trump supporters garbage to dress up himself. His costume, a garbage truck driver. Mr. Trump almost fell over getting into the lorry before criticising the president, then driving around in circles on an airport runway.
Joe Biden should be ashamed of himself if he knows what he's even doing. And she should be ashamed because she should let him do it. She's the vice president, but I assume she's acting as the president. She should never have let that happen. I hope this garbage truck. Thank you very much.
Joe Biden raised eyebrows again while hosting families for the annual trick-or-treating. As you can see, the president bent down to give a baby dressed as a chicken a playful bite on the leg. Meanwhile, the world's richest man, Elon Musk's been ordered to face an emergency court hearing in Philadelphia over his $1 million voter lottery. A vocal supporter of Donald Trump, Musk has been giving prize money to registered voters in swing states, saying it's to encourage people to vote. But Pennsylvania's district attorney claims the giveaway is illegal and interferes with election integrity. Winners of the lotteries have been advised so far not to spend the money. North Korea has confirmed it's fired an intercontinental ballistic missile off its east coast into the Sea of Japan. The country's state news agency says it's the longest flight recorded in tests. Kim Jong-un reportedly ordered the strike in an attempt to show appropriate military action to Pyongyang's enemies. The resentencing hearing for Eric and Lama Menendez has been set for December the 11th. The brothers are currently serving life sentences without parole for the fatal shootings of their parents in 1989. Their lawyers say they acted in self-defense after years of emotional and sexual abuse by their father. The resentencing could see them immediately eligible for parole.
Shadow Chancellor is with us this morning. Good to see you. We normally see you in a high-vis jacket the day after Budget Day.
I know, all changed. This is opposition, you know. None of these PR stunts.
No, Robert Jenrick was on the programme a little bit earlier. He called Rachel Reeves a liar. How would you describe her budget?
Well, I don't use that language, but what I would say is yesterday was a bad day for trust in British politics, because 30 times this year before the election, the Chancellor said she'd no plans to increase tax outside what was explicitly written in the Labour manifesto. And we had the biggest tax-raising budget in British history. And however much Labour tries to say that their tax rises won't hurt ordinary families, what the watchdog, the OBR, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, they say this is going to mean lower pay, lower living standards, higher inflation, higher mortgages, and so it is a very, very sad day for ordinary families.
She said she had no choice.
Well, let's just look at this. I mean, I don't think anyone actually believes this 22 billion number that she has been peddling, but she didn't increase taxes by 22 billion. She increased them by 40 billion. This was not about her legacy. This was a choice. This was the budget that she wanted to do all along. And it's a legitimate choice. It's one I disagree with. But if she'd wanted to do that, she should have told us before the election. We could have had the debate. She actually told the studios, told people like you, that she thought taxes were too high. Many people heard that. Many people believed that. And they're now waking up feeling totally betrayed.
Crumbling public services.
Well, that is the central issue. You know, with an ageing population, with all the pressures of, you know, what Putin is doing in Ukraine, the need to defend the country, how do you fund our public services without really damaging rises in taxation that damage the economy? And, you know, we want to put more money into public services. I gave the NHS 6 billion in the budget this year, but we'd have done it differently. We'd have made difficult decisions on welfare reform, on public sector productivity. We wouldn't have given train drivers a £10,000 rise without asking for anything in return. But I think the biggest one is actually welfare reform. If you cut the number of people claiming benefit to 2019 levels, in other words, before the pandemic, that releases £34 billion a year. Now, the government's chosen to do nothing on that. And as a result, the adult working age benefit bill is going to be more than £100 billion by the end of this period. Those decisions are really difficult. I don't want to pretend they're easy at all. They are really difficult. But we would have taken that harder path because we know that the result of higher taxes is lower growth, and that is families.
She would say, or that the government would say, that they are looking at welfare reform, and that is something that they're going to tackle during the course of this Parliament.
Well, you know, words are fine, but in the end, you've got to take action. What we know in terms of what they've done is that they shelved welfare reform from the King's Speech. Liz Kendall said many times that she doesn't agree with welfare sanctions. So if you take away the stick, and you need lots of carrots, but you also need sticks, you aren't going to remake our welfare system. And at the moment, we are signing off 80,000 people a year and saying that not just that you don't have to work, but you don't even have to look for work. That's really bad for the economy because businesses need those people in order to expand. But it's also very bad for the individuals involved. And what I would say is this is not easy stuff. What I wanted to do was to see a budget yesterday where we took those difficult decisions, made those difficult choices. I'm afraid the Chancellor didn't do that.
Was there any part of the budget that you supported? Do you support the investment in the NHS?
Yes, I do. I think it's good to put more money into the NHS, but I would have funded it differently. I wouldn't have funded it through very damaging tax rises on business. I mean, the increase in employers' national insurance, the Office of Budget Responsibility say that will be the equivalent of 50,000 fewer jobs. That's a lot of, you know, Japanese car factories. 50,000 fewer jobs because of that £25 billion rise in employers' national insurance. So to say that it's not going to have any impact on working people when 50,000 fewer people are going to be in work, I'm afraid it is baloney.
You had the hump with the OBR earlier on in the week, and you took to the pen and wrote in the Times about it. Do you feel vindicated now you've seen what they've said?
Actually, you know, the OBR told me when I complained that they weren't going to criticise the actions of previous ministers, including myself, and they were right and I was wrong. The reality is that I shouldn't have believed Rachel Reeves when she briefed the Sunday Times that there was going to be big criticism of me. There wasn't. I think lots of other people think they should have believed Rachel Reeves when she told them that she wasn't going to put up taxes.
So is that a sorry for the OBR?
Well, I think the person who should say sorry is Rachel for telling the Sunday Times there was going to be this huge criticism of Jeremy Hunt, which made me say, well, look, if you're going to criticise me, tell me what you're going to say, give me a right of reply. And in reality, that criticism wasn't there. There was no vindication or legitimisation of this 22 billion fiction at all. On the contrary,
It's okay to say sorry if you're sorry.
Well, you know, as I say, I think the person who should say sorry is the person who made the misleading comments to the papers.
What about the money for the post office scandal and the infected blood scandal? Your government didn't fully compensate either group, and according to the Chancellor, didn't allocate funds either for it.
Well, the big one of those is infected blood.
It is.
You know, I think it's going to be £12 billion from memory. We
11.8, yeah.
We didn't know what that was going to be because the inquiry had not reported. But we did know how we were going to fund that. That is a huge sum of money, which we
Had you allocated the funds?
Yeah, no, we had decided we're going to do exactly what Rachel Reeves has done. That is going to be added to the national debt because it's too big a sum of money to be absorbed in one go. And it will cost, I think we think it will cost about £700 million a year in additional interest payments. Yes, we knew that was coming and we planned for it.
Let's talk about fuel duty. It used to go up every year. I used to remember my father talking about it when I was younger. It's been frozen for some time now. It costs the Treasury a huge amount of money, and the watchdog has found that the cut isn't being fully passed on to consumers anyway. So why not increase it? Why do we keep freezing it?
Well, Rachel can tell you the reasons that she chose to
Well, why did you
carry
do
on freezing, but I'll tell you why
Yes,
I did,
please.
which is because we were in a cost of living crisis and people were seeing the bills for their weekly shop go through the roof. We had 11% inflation caused mainly by the invasion of Ukraine. And so I thought it was just the wrong time for pump prices to go up as well. And, you know, I got criticised for carrying on with that freeze, but I felt it was the wrong thing to do.
What would you have done this time?
This time, I think, on balance, I would have wanted to continue in the way that Rachel Reeves did because I still think people are feeling the pinch, and I think people would have found it very tough.
When you were sat there yesterday and listening to what was being said, there was a bit of to and fro with her and Rishi Sunak as well, some pointed comments by her. How did you feel?
I felt very worried for the country. I mean, look, let's get this out of the way. We lost the election. We were thrashed. We lost that argument in July with the British people. But I felt angry for two reasons. First of all, we were told repeatedly in the election Labour was not going to put up taxes, and they went back on their word, and that is very bad for trust in politics when the ruling party so flagrantly goes against their manifesto commitments. But I also felt worried for the economy because when we left office, the International Monetary Fund said the British economy was going to grow faster than France, Germany, Italy, Japan. We've been through a very tough patch, but we could see that things were going to get better. The impact of this budget is going to be to reduce growth, reduce jobs, reduce living standards, and it just felt like a lot of the hard work that we'd done to get to that point was unfortunately going to be undone.
I'm sure some of my viewers this morning will be saying, that's rich coming from a Tory whose previous Prime Minister almost crashed the economy.
Well, I don't think the mini-budget was right, and I've said that many times, but I also think it's wrong to say that the pressures I faced when I became Chancellor 2 years ago were largely because of that. The real cause of the 11% inflation was Putin invading Ukraine, and that's why they had very high inflation in France and Germany and America and lots of other countries as well. The root cause also was the fact that we had to borrow £500 billion to pay for things like furlough in the pandemic. So those were the real causes, but the mini-budget didn't help, and you know what happened there was wrong, and that's why I reversed it.
Here's the question that I'm sure you're expecting. Are you going to stay on as Shadow Chancellor?
I'm not. I told both the leadership contenders that I think having had that drubbing at the election, the Conservative Party needs to show new faces to the country. I mean, you know, politics is a tough game, but I recognise that's how it works. So I will step back from the Shadow Cabinet, at least for a few years. And what that means, Kate, is that this is the last interview I will do with you as either Chancellor or Shadow Chancellor. So thanks for the memories.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't think you were going to say that. Will you miss it?
Will I miss my early morning jousts with you? Of course I will. Devastated not to have those. But yes, look, these are the most important decisions for the country, because in the end, everything has to be paid for. If you want more money for the NHS or our armed forces, you want the economy to grow, you know, these are the big central issues. And so being right at the heart of those is a privilege. So, yes, I will miss it.
What are you going to do instead? I think I know the answer to this one, given that who I had lunch with the other day, but you tell us.
Hopefully I'll be a slightly better dad. That's top of the list. You know, I will be a very active backbencher. And I've got constituents who need representing in Parliament. I'll be doing my best for the people who got me in Ash.
So you're going to stay in Parliament?
Absolutely.
You fought very hard to keep that seat.
I fought to keep the seat. I'm not going to let go.
OK, it's great to see you. Thank you very much
indeed.
Thanks so much, Kate. Thank
The violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was even the answer at all.
We've seen thuggery, locking people inside a hotel and setting it on fire. That is downright criminality and attempted murder.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
أن تذهب هذه الجبهة إلى تصعيد إضافي أو إلى حرب كامل.
Tell me what happens when you eventually got out of the clutches of Hamas.
That day that I was taken out, I didn't believe them. The only minute that I understood that I'm going back home was when I met the first soldier.
Probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
In over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans.
The baby will be born, and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
ED1, you are go for manual hatch open.
And the hatch is open on Dragon. First view from a helmet cam.
I have a feeling that
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham. It is Halloween, and of course, just to, when you were expecting it to get scary, it did get scary. Rachel Reeves came out with a busting tax budget yesterday afternoon, which is basically going to make everybody worse off. It's going to make the country slow down. It's going to put growth down somewhere near 1.5% in the future. Basically, they've taken the ball and run away with it and given a kicking. We'll show you some of the shoes that were being worn by some of the members of the Cabinet, particularly Angela Rayner. But this morning in the papers, it's called A Record Tax Burden, Spending Power. Rachel, it says on the Mirror. Halloween horror show, front page of the Express. Nightmare on Downing Street in the Telegraph. And, of course, The Sun have done Rachel Reeves up with her face inside a pumpkin, which is actually a bit of an improvement, to be honest. But we'll bring you more on the budget because we thought we'd ask Rishi Sunak what it means for ordinary people.
National insurance, up. Capital gains tax, up. Inheritance tax, up. Energy taxes, up. Business rates, up. First-time buyer stamp duty, up. Pensions tax, up. They have fiddled the figures.
The only thing that's going down appears to be the British economy. Well done, Rachel. 034 499 1000 is the number. Richard Tice is going to join us very shortly, because the other big story yesterday was that Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House of Commons, basically put a gagging order on all MPs from talking about what happened in Southport, what happened afterwards, how the Southport information was withheld, how long it was withheld for, why it was withheld, what did Keir Starmer know, and when did he know it. We will get to that, of course, coming up. Let's get a voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. You just know it's going to be a brilliant show today. It's James from Bolsover. And because it's officially Halloween, can we please rename Rachel Reeves as Rachel Thieves, Wicked Witch of Westminster? Cheers, bro.
Very good. Wicked Witch of Westminster. I like it. Rachel Thieves. Very much so. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 5 minutes past 7. Richard Tice is joining me now, Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Richard, a very good morning to you.
Well, I have to say, Mike, there's no glory this morning. I mean, I feel that all of our pockets have been ripped open and anything we had in them has been brought out.
It's absolutely extraordinary. I mean, and also the manner in which they've done it is one of, it seems to me, sort of smugness, of sort of envy, of any kind of, you know, taking stuff off people who have worked hard. They don't like people that work hard. They only like people that apparently have payslips who work in the public sector.
But the truth about this deeply socialist budget is that it is far more scary, far more hairy, and far more risky than Liz Truss's mini budget a couple of years ago, because this is the biggest ever tax rises, the biggest ever spending rises, the biggest ever cooking of the books by changing the rules on the debt, which the bond markets have already ruled bad news, which means mortgage rates are going up. And frankly, the forecasts from the fantasy forecasting office of incompetent forecasting, I mean, they're just for the birds.
Yeah.
Something seriously does not add up in these numbers.
It really doesn't. And also, even the growth forecast that they wanted to see projected for them by the Office of Budget Responsibility look awful. 1.6%. I mean, that's not worth the paper it's written on.
That's the economic growth, but per person, you're lucky if you get the 1% per person growth because of the huge immigration. And they use a long-term immigration number of 315,000 in their forecast. We all know that, frankly, again, if only we've been running at over double that in recent years. So, you know, this is a serious horror show. I don't think we're going to get even the growth that they're indicating, and we could be heading towards financial disaster in short order over the next couple of years.
And you'll know this better than anyone. There's an awful lot of businesses that I've been speaking to and business people that I've been speaking to who are just saying, we're not going to do this. We're just not. We're going to either shut this here and move it, or we're going to move it anyway, or we're going to move to another country. A lot of people talking about going to Portugal, people going to Dubai. You know, people are just not going to pay the money. So even if what they think they're going to get out of everybody isn't going to be the right number.
Which is why the numbers will unravel so catastrophically. Lots of people are talking about leaving. Lots of people are talking about not bothering to employ more people, not bothering to take more risk, not bothering to work harder, because the rewards just don't justify the extra effort and risk. And at every level, it is deep, sort of Marxist socialism. It is truly a horror show.
It really is, and the more lies coming out of the government as well, because they said before yesterday this will be a budget for working people, so that working people will be better off. Well, nobody's better off, are they?
No, I can't see anybody better off except train drivers and a few other heavily unionised workers in the public sector. And they're pouring more money into the already best ever funded NHS ever. And we all know what will happen there. The money will be gobbled up by management, by bureaucracy, waste and mismanagement, because we have not heard anything about fundamental reforms to the way we do healthcare in the UK. In order to get better outcomes. And
it was, I think, 28 days ago that they said we won't be reforming the NHS and we won't be putting any more money into the NHS until it's reformed. Oh, that's another lie.
Exactly that. There's another sort of 10, 11, 12 billion a year going into the NHS with no specific reform requirements, just weren't even mentioned. And the sort of token effort in efficiency improvements across the board of 2%. We were talking about 5% of the election. Nurses and doctors tell me the waste, the inefficiency in the NHS, absolutely gargantuan. I mean, it's of an Everest scale.
Oh, it is absolutely off the scale, particularly when you come to nurses, when they have nurses who work a couple of days for the NHS, then come back as locums and get paid more money. Same with the doctors. You know, the whole thing is an absolute mess. But let's talk about Lindsay Hall yesterday, because I think we were all a bit shocked when this happened. Lindsay Hall took it upon himself to make a statement to the House over the questions that were being asked about Southport. Have a look at this.
I wish to remind the House that the following horrendous, terrible incident in Southport on the 29th of July, a suspect is awaiting trial, having been charged with multiple offences. That means the House sub judice resolution is engaged and references should not be made to the case. I know that all honourable members wish to see justice done in this case. It is therefore of paramount importance that nothing is said in this House which could potentially prejudice a proper trial or lead to it being abandoned.
How is it then that if you say justice must be done in this case, that's not in some way interfering with the case?
Well, very good point, Mike. And as I think you know, I had to do a fairly fast sort of change of direction on the question that I asked just a few minutes later. Right. Because, look, the reality is that I was planning to ask a different question to the question I asked. That's fine. In the chamber, ultimately, the Speaker's the boss. The Speaker is always right, and we fully respect the Speaker. Essentially, that means that we can't mention the Southport case, as I understand it, until the end of the trial, which at best case will be end of January, possibly later. The Speaker's promised a full and frank debate thereafter. And the reality is that we have to be able to discuss the failures that have been going on by, I believe, the Crown Prosecution Service and by police authorities in a number of cases where information is withheld from the public that the government's own essentially sort of terrorism czar, Jonathan Hall case, on repeated occasions in recent weeks, he has said that actually it's in everybody's interest that more information is put out there sooner on the background of suspects in order to reduce misinformation, what he calls an information gap.
Yes.
And within a vacuum...
Well, he's saying that this morning. He's saying that this morning in the Telegraph. You know, he's saying there was an information gap in this case, which was incorrect and should not have happened.
And that's, in a sense, that's what I was referring to without specifically referring to it in my question yesterday. I don't even got that clip. But
we have. Let's have a look at that, because this is the question that you were then having to change to ask the Prime Minister.
The government's own independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, Jonathan Hall Casey, has said repeatedly recently that it is important in incidents of terrorism that the authorities put out more information sooner in order to prevent an information gap. Does the Prime Minister agree?
I think it's very important, first and foremost, that in all cases, including the particularly difficult case that the Speaker mentioned earlier, that the police and prosecutors are able to do their difficult job. And all of us in this House have a choice to make, including both candidates to be the next Tory leader. They can either support the police in their difficult task, or they can undermine the police in their difficult task. And I know which side I'm on.
Yeah, we know which side you're on as well, which is part of the problem. I mean, what a ridiculous answer.
So his response was he was actually very unsettled by my question. Yeah. He was very uncomfortable. He didn't know what's coming, which is quite rare, it turns out, in PMQs. Very often the PM does know what's coming. But so he was floundering around, and the House was completely silent. You could hear a pin drop in there as I asked the question. So, the reality is that information should be put out there in many cases to prevent misinformation. And what those of us as MPs and in positions of sort of responsibility have now got to work out is what we can say, when and how, without falling foul of this or that, frankly. And I'm not saying here this morning I've got all the answers, but we are trying to work it out. Because
but equally,
it's incredibly important.
Well, of course it's incredibly important. And I mean, I've been in this business a long time, Richard, and I've had many arguments with many lawyers on press night, when I've been in newspapers, on conversations we can have on the radio and on TV, you know, because the contempt of court law is pretty straightforward. You can't interfere with a case, but there are plenty of questions you can ask around the circumstances that you want to talk about, and you proved it yesterday, because even though you couldn't ask the specific question you wanted to ask, you were effectively asking a question about that case. But you didn't say it. You did it cleverly enough so that they can't pull you up on it. But at the end of the day, you can see by Keir Starmer's reaction that he's really irritable, because being a lawyer, he thought nobody would ask a question about it.
Oh, and frankly, I don't think anybody else in the House was likely to ask that sort of question. I have to tell you, just before I stood up, I mean, it was a slightly sort of thoughtful moment. But anyway, we went for it.
I was going to say, I mean, without wishing to invoke the spirit of Sir Alex Ferguson, it was a bit slightly squeaky bum moment, I would imagine, because I mean, you could have been hauled out by the Sergeant at Arms, presumably, if they thought you'd gone too far.
It was just one of those moments, and but look, I'm very pleased I got the question in. I think it was very important for everybody, frankly, up and down the country. A mark has been put down, and no one wants to prejudice a fair trial, but equally, questions have got to be asked about who knew what when, and it is all about, the Prime Minister talked about having confidence in the police, well, and backing the police. Of course, decent law-abiding folk want to back the police, but we have to be able to hold accountable those running the police authorities and police forces, and those running the leadership of the Crown Prosecution Service, who are very involved in making the decision about what information can or can't be put out there.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to the heart of having that degree of confidence, and we've got to be able to challenge them. They've got to know that they can't just hide behind this, you can't ask any difficult questions because it might prejudice a case. Other countries do this much better than we.
Yes.
And we just can't allow ourselves to think we're the best at all of this.
Well, you can't imagine this happening in America, can you? I mean, America, which is genuinely the land of the free, and I know this because I've worked there, I've worked with lawyers there. I know, you know, you can say pretty much anything that you want, where there's proper freedom of speech. But the idea that politically you're going to shut down a conversation in the Houses of Parliament is absolutely anathema to me, and is anathema to everyone who believes in democracy. You know, because this is the way Keir Starmer operates. He just likes to shut everything down.
And that is a very exactly right. That's a very interesting way of putting it. And I think they would rather nobody talked about this for a very long time. And, you know, there are many other cases that we want to know. What on earth's happened to the information around other individuals who've been charged with heinous crimes, and we've sort of got to try and work out now what we can ask and how. And frankly, I don't yet have the answer. But well,
I mean, he hasn't said you can't ask about Manchester Airport, so maybe next week you should ask about that.
Unfortunately, that's a different case because no one's been charged yet on that.
Yes,
and we are very much on the case on Manchester Airport. There'll be more news of that in the coming weeks. After the presidential election in the US, we will be moving on to the next phase of our plans on Manchester Airport. Of that, I can tease into your programme.
Definitely. Well, also, we still have yet to find out what's happening about our friend in the north, the Runcorn MP, who seems to think that the best way to sort of interact with his constituents is to beat the hell out of them. It's now Thursday. He offended back then on the early hours of Saturday morning. What's happening with him?
Very good question. Well, ironically, he was due to have a question at Prime Minister's Questions yesterday. And funnily enough, his name seemed to disappear from the list.
How strange. Yeah.
Look, who knows? But there's every prospect that there might be a by-election there in due course. And, of course, we will be gearing up and getting ready for that, should that occur.
Yes, well, again, that's something that I'm sure Keir Starmer would rather you didn't talk about, because you probably win that one, you know. But there we are. Mike Amesbury, ladies and gentlemen, there he is, just interacting, helping out his constituent there, who had a question for him about the winter fuel allowance.
I can confirm that I approached my constituents in a completely different manner, with a smile on my face, during a sort of sensible time of the day, and have very constructive, friendly discussions.
Well, let's hope so. Good to talk to you, Richard. Thank you very much indeed. Richard Tice, MP, the Deputy Leader of Reform.
Begin with the World Series champs.
The Dodgers and Yankees put on quite the show. The Dodgers came from behind twice, even erasing a 5-run Yankee lead. They won it 7-6. Freddie Freeman was named MVP. It sparked wild celebrations in L.A. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts summed it up.
Dave Roberts, how does that feel?
Oh my God, this is pure elation. I'm just so proud of our guys. Listen, everyone wanted this matchup, and it lived up to the billing.
The victory parade is tomorrow.
Heartbreaking for the Yankees. Manager Aaron Boone got emotional.
What that group forged this year and what we've been through to get here. But I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken for those guys that pour so much into this. You know, the ending is cruel.
The Yankees have gone 15 years without a title. Next, the sign of the times. Some cookies were delivered to election workers in North Carolina.
So in response, they called the bomb squad and a hazmat team, thinking the package was suspicious. Well, turns out they were just a thank you gift from a grateful citizen.
And finally, happy Halloween.
We got into the spirit earlier on World News Now. Good morning and welcome to Deadpool News Now. I'm Repool.
And I'm Dimpool. And we
Wait. You're calling yourself Dimple?
Well, yeah. Dimbert, Deadpool. Can we talk about this later? All right, anyway, getting to our top news story this morning. The Incredible Hulk causes incredible damage to downtown L.A.
That was fun to shoot.
A lot of fun, of course, on World News Now. We've got top headlines coming up next.
It's lunchtime in America, so what are we serving up?
Well, how about everything you need to know?
Give it to me. Your help, your money, breaking news, pop culture, with the biggest stars, music, trends, and of course, good food.
It's all coming up on GMA3.
You're going to love it. We'll see you then.
Now streaming on Hulu.
Checking more top stories now. Former President Trump last night declared he will protect women whether they like it or not, referring to border security. And he blasted President Biden's comment in which Biden appeared to call Trump supporters garbage. Vice President Harris says she's the unity candidate and is vowing to fight for freedom. And she spoke out last night against Trump's alleged plan to put Robert Kennedy Jr. in charge of U.S. public health agencies.
Military says 35 ISIS fighters were killed in a U.S. airstrike in Syria. A raid earlier this month in Iraq injured 2 American service members.
For the first time ever in the U.S., a pig has been infected with bird flu. The case was confirmed in Oregon, and officials say the risk still remains low for people.
New Jersey's largest newspaper is going all digital. The Star Ledger will soon stop its daily print editions. The paper started 157 years ago and was featured on The Sopranos.
Today's weather, record warm for Halloween in the Northeast, rain from the Great Lakes to Texas, rain and mountain snow in the Northwest.
And finally, a story from the World Series that has nothing to do with baseball.
Danny New explains.
Dodgers first baseman Freddie Freeman had a legacy-defining World Series, starting with this walk-off grand slam in Game 1. All this coming famously while the now series MVP nursed a sprained ankle.
For him to finally go out on this note with all the things that he's doing is just absolutely incredible.
ABC spoke with his wife, Chelsea Freeman, before the series clinch in Game 5. Chelsea and her 3 boys had been seen cheering on Dad at many of the games, and while it was hard to fathom Freddie's ability to overcome his injuries on the sport's biggest stage, that feeling is only magnified when you consider what his family has been through these past few months. In early August, Chelsea shared on social media that their 3-year-old son, Max, had been experiencing, quote, full-body paralysis. They took him to the hospital where he was diagnosed with a rare neurological condition called Guillain-Barré syndrome.
It's just crazy. Like a few months ago, we were just at our ultimate, low place.
After 8 days in the pediatric ICU, Chelsea shared that Max finally was able to return home. And while he started his long road to recovery, the Dodgers organization and players stood behind the Freeman family, wearing shirts soon after saying Max strong. Now, 3 months after that initial health scare, Chelsea gave a very encouraging update on Max's progress.
His improvements have been absolutely mind-blowing.
Freddie Freeman on 1-2. Into center field, a base hit.
And in the World Series clinching final game, Freeman once again came through for the Dodgers, ending a season with so many ups and downs on an ultimate high.
It's been a grind these last 3 months. It's been a lot, and this is it right here.
Guys, you saw a clip with their oldest son, Charlie, at the game last night. Chelsea said that after Freddie's grand slam walk-off in Game 1, all of his friends immediately jumped on Charlie, started celebrating with him. That's got to be pretty cool, right?
Very cool for Freddie and the new World Series champs, LA Dodgers.
Have a happy and safe Halloween.
America's #1 news, ABC News, now streaming 24/7 on Disney+.